I was always retrofitting my message so that people would respond. Now I speak my message, and the people who are meant to respond will respond. And that's what I teach my clients. I help them understand the way that, their presence and their voice and their messaging is not the same as mine. And so how could I teach you what your voice and your presence is without you understanding it yourself?
Welcome to Connecting the Dots. We are back. We are back with another episode, and I have a very special guest, and what she does is very interesting and near and dear to my heart, just because there's a lot of correlations that I kind of apply in my life a bit, and I'm learning more. Her name is Barbara Alexander. She is a strategic advisor for soul-led leadership, specializing in business astrology. She partners with visionary founders and executives who have outgrown the way they've been leading and are ready to recalibrate their business and leadership to reflect who they are now. Blending business astrology with neuroscience-based mindset work and somatic processes, Barbara helps align high-capacity leaders navigate the quiet, often unspoken shift between external success and internal evolution. Her work supports aligned decisions, sustainable growth, and leadership that reflects their next chapter, not their past. Barbara, I'm so happy we met. We met through a random networking Zoom, and then we got to chat after that. And now here we are. And I'm like super excited to just dive into your story, how you got into business astrology, the impacts you've seen, the lives you've changed, just everything, how everything just evolved together. So welcome.
Thank you, Jessica. It was like we got thrown into a Zoom room, and it was like we already picked up on each other's energy, and it was just, that's how it happens. You vibe with certain people and you connect, and this is where we are now. So thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Of course. So business astrology. What can you tell us about this week? So it's Thursday, August 14th.
Oh, well, when you showed me your calendar to book today's interview, I certainly looked at my personal astrology and what was going on in the sky. So, there's a lot of very positive influence this week. So for those who do follow astrology, you can harness it in a really, really sweet way. For me personally, it's activating my voice better and stronger and more authoritative. So, yeah. So I picked this day. This is why you showed me your calendar. I was like, hey, when's the best time for me to be interviewed?
Yeah, that's very interesting. And so did you also take into consideration, I know everybody was making a big deal about Lionsgate last week, Friday.
Oh, no astrologer believes in Lionsgate. So I'll just leave it at that. It's not an astrological event. It's a new age spiritual phenomenon. But if you talk to any astrologer, the way that they describe it, in terms of the spiritualness of this open portal, those alignments aren't really happening. And that's all I'll say. I don't say anymore, but there are a lot of very, very knowledgeable astrologers that will talk about the fact that, it talks about the sun and, Sirius, the most powerful star aligning in the sign of Leo. You know where Sirius is right now? In the sign of Cancer. So that should tell you something.
Okay. So that actually brings me into an interesting question, because, a lot of people are getting a lot of stuff from ChatGPT about things. So how would you say, this is actually really interesting topic, the crossover between spiritual stuff that people pick up from wherever they pick up, people putting ChatGPT everywhere, and then what's actually real astrology?
It's what you put in is what you get out. And even as a certified astrologer. I didn't just read a book or two. I didn't just scour the internet for information. I went through two levels of deep study in astrology. So even with what I put in, sometimes I don't get out what's accurate. So yeah.
No, Barbara, like this is really fascinating to me because like I know a couple of people who like live their lives off of Chat GPT and like trying to be spiritual with all of that stuff.
So like I said, it depends. Like if you know how to prompt it with
Ah.
very accurate information, but as the chat goes on, it may go down a whole different path that takes you into a lot of inaccuracies. So it's like I've tried it, and I will, in some respects it is like, so the way that I've used it is I've used it to consolidate information. So I'm already looking at the charts. I already know what the interpretations are. And then I put it in and I synthesize it. And then I ask for more layering of information. And then I have to correct it. So if you want to just go in and say, you know, my son is in Cancer, what does that mean? Right? Or I'm not gonna say it's completely inaccurate. It's a buildup over time. But the way that I explain it to a lot of people is there are layers to astrology. There are so many layers to it that you may be only looking at a very narrow container or silo of what's going on in your chart and how the astrology is affecting you than some of the other outer influences that are shaping those immediate experiences. That's an easy way to describe it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm going through a cycle now that started on my birthday in July that will take me until next July. That is a shadow over some business things that I'm planning. It's not stopping me, but it's helping to frame the way that I actually show up in the world, as opposed to the way I'm going to show up a year from now. Do you understand? Did I make that clear? Like in some respects, like yeah.
I think I get the nuance just based off reflecting, and like for me, I'm still learning a lot, right? I'm learning a lot, and I like how I was last year. Like I had the same intention of trying to scale my business last year. But how I was showing up last year was I basically needed to undo a lot of my self-talk and like a lot of how I would view things, my perspective of things, where like I would, you know, I would get consumed by if someone, I don't know, like events, right? Get consumed by, oh, this happened. I need to ponder on it and analyze it and just, you know, really paying way too much attention to things that I didn't need to, just based off upon a belief system like, okay, this is part of my spiritual journey. I have to process it like this. When really, no, I like needed to get, you know, I needed to focus more on my own mental health, really, because I had a PTSD diagnosis, for example, right? So my journey last year was super, super intense shifts and help and building myself up in the way that I neglected previously. So that now how I'm showing up this year, I'm like, all right, I'm ready. I'm good. Like I'm focused. I'm, you know. So it's like, so is that kind of
Yes.
what, okay.
And so what I usually encounter with people is they're pushing. Like, so you're a lot more self-aware and you're like, okay, wait a second, I need to step back. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm experiencing. So I need to move my way through this. And I don't know if you used your astrology to figure that out, but okay. So good for you that you were very intuitive. But then what I typically see leaders and entrepreneurs do is like, no, I got to push. I've got to keep going.
Yeah.
And so I'll see something in their chart, which is an energetic blueprint of it's their energy that's saying, no, it's not that you have to stay in your room with the door shut, for the next few months, but you have to honor the rest periods. You have to honor the downtime. And what I can typically see is how somebody can cycle through that. I can see how the astrological influences that are going on now are affecting their chart, so that they know when they're going to experience the highs and the lows, and help plan. That's a lot of what I do with my clients. We look at the 50,000 foot level and say, what's the year going to be like, and how do I navigate it? So, and then we get, into when there's a push cycle, or a sell cycle, or a visibility cycle, or a rest cycle. That's just to kind of simplify it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense because it's fascinating. Like December, it feels like it was just here. In December, I was resting, like really, really like in a shell. I'm like, okay, I'm dealing with the core of myself, and I'm setting my intentions for the year, and I'm just like with myself. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to start the year strong. Like, I'm going to do all these things, like annual planning, everything. And I was good for like a month or two. And then a lot of events just occurred, which was like challenging the belief system that I was in the process of changing. So it turned out to be the season of me, I guess, rewiring my life. And I didn't know that was going to happen, right? So, because I'm getting familiar, getting introduced to like the charts and everything. And I had done like the human design chart, but I never really took the next step to like really understand the impact of what that means year to year, or, season to season, day to day. So like, as you're talking about that, I'm like, yeah, if I would have approached my annual planning with more like of an energetic approach, because energy comes first before everything, then it's like, all right, instead of me trying to push and go to market really hard, I already aware like, okay, let me plan to be more nurturing during this season, which I know that's what I'm going to need. And
Exactly.
then plan out my push.
Exactly. Yeah. There's seasons for visibility. There's seasons for rest. There's seasons for recalibration of your business. So it helps to see, on a collective level, there are certain things that are affecting all of us. And then individually, they affect us uniquely. So that's what I look at. I talk about what's happening generally, to everyone, where we're moving in terms of humanity, where we're moving as a collective, where the consciousness is shifting, but then how it affects you is very different than how it affects me, because our charts are different.
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense. And it's like, as you were talking, I had a question that just came to mind. As it relates to like collective consciousness, how would you see, and I know we touched upon this right before we came on here and started recording, what would you say is like the top 3 shifts that you see happening between, let's say, last year, this year, or maybe the past 5 years compared to today, or something like that?
So yes, I'd say it's the last 5 years has been more towards an evolution of self-empowerment, authenticity and individuality, and inner truth, and letting that guide you as opposed to outside forces or outside influences. So, I mean, that's really what's happening as a collective. And there are so many energies that are collaborating this year and early next year, that if you talk to any astrologer, they'll tell you they haven't seen this in all of the time that they've practiced astrology. It's like, it's that unique. So if you follow, like, we're creating the new earth. This is the beginning of the creation of the new earth. And the shift in humanity. I mean, it's going to take years. I mean, it's not we're not going to be all done next year.
Right.
But there's just this is a very pivotal year for, I'll just say, like a quantum shift.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You feeling that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm definitely feeling that. And then even the types of relationships I've been starting to develop this year, and a lot of like I'm finding myself getting more involved with people who care about sustainability and are actually doing something like in
Yes.
clean energy or renewables, or how can we reduce like our plastics, or how can we take care of the earth, right? We were part of the earth. Essentially, we have a relationship with the earth.
Mm-hmm.
um, we can't survive obviously without it. So, and it seems like more and more people are doing like their own media
Mm-hmm.
to help share, tips and why things are important to be sustainable, and why it's important to get sunlight in your eye, why it's important to, eat as unprocessed food as possible. People are, there's more people trying to share the message of, you know, your gut, right? So if we have a lot of pesticides in the food, you're doing a lot of things to your gut, and if you're doing things to your gut, your brain's not going to function the way it
Mm-hmm.
should, neither will the rest of your body. And then if you're not functioning the way how you should, how do you're not really you're essentially taking away whatever extra energy you have or could have to do what you feel you should be doing here on earth, what your
Mm-hmm.
purpose is.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely see that shift in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
um and then the other thing I see, and then the other thing I hear people talking about is like a shift, a split. So there's a greater split of people who are more conscious of themselves and the earth and nature, and then people who are just in their cycles of
Mm-hmm.
staying. So that's what I've seen.
Yes, and we'll all get there. We're all on different timelines, so to speak. So I think that there's a significant amount of people since 2020 that have made the shift, and we're here to help
Mm-hmm.
in whatever role we have on
Mm-hmm.
this earth.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Interesting.
And I think we're all finding each other. I'm sorry, my thing keeps falling out. I think we're all finding each other. It's like we got thrown into the Zoom room, and you're just, I'm sure you've seen this too. I mean, you're just one example of people that have just crossed my path in the last 6 months that I would not have met otherwise. And there's an instant connection. There
Yeah.
is this, like, there's like this recognition, and then at the same time, there are relationships that are winding down. There are relationships that are just quiet. They're quietly dissolving. They're not like you're having some, I don't want to talk to you anymore. It's just, you're just quietly like dissolving, and everybody's, kind of finding their own mini tribes or their own groups that they're aligning with their purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel
Mm-hmm.
that too?
I do. I do. I
Yeah.
do. Like the relationships that dissolved in my life as I was shifting, I mean, some were more painful than others,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like a situational dissolve where it's like, okay, this happened and now we're not talking as much, but it's okay. Cause I know that, you're on your path and I'm on mine. It's like a compassionate, I guess, dissolve, but like it's for the best for both parties.
It could be, yeah, it could be something that actually like severs the relationship, or it just could be a quiet dissolution. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've seen both. I've experienced both in my life. I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced both.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's so funny. I was literally having a conversation with someone this morning about that. Like, as he was shifting on his journey, there was like the relationships changing, and the dissolution, and because it's like essentially you are going into another world, really.
Hmm.
you know. So there's just the basic human factor of not just being able to relate to each other anymore.
That's exactly it. That's why I called it a quiet dissolution. It's almost like you're starting to see different philosophies and different beliefs,
Yeah.
and that's sort of where we're splitting, and then we're starting to align with people who have similar beliefs and similar philosophies. And if we're meant to do things together, we'll do things together. If we're just meant to connect, I mean, I've just connected a lot of people. Like, it's, you meet somebody and you realize that the purpose that you met them was to connect them with somebody else, and
Yeah.
they're off, doing something
That
together,
is true. That is
right?
true. Yeah. 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 So speaking about connecting and everything, and we're connecting the dots. So now
Connect.
we're going to connect the dots of your life journey, Barbara.
Oh, okay. All right. So, what do you want to know? What do you want to know?
So, I mean, I guess before you got to this point, and I know we also chatted about this as we were like getting to know each other, but for our podcast, like, I guess when you were a child thinking about the future and how you thought life would be,
Mm-hmm.
how does that compare to where you are right now?
Very different. Very different. But I was on that path and I reached where I thought I would be. Um, so I'll kind of backtrack. I went to Fordham University here in New York, good school. And before I even graduated, I had a job with IBM. A job with IBM back in the 80s.
Hot stuff.
Okay, hot stuff, right?
Yes.
I was 21 and I was already making more than my friends. So, and at that time, money was the status symbol. Like, how much are you making? How much did you, when you left school, what was the offer you received from one of the big 8 accounting firms or one of the big Fortune 500 companies? So I got there. I got there before I graduated, and very early in my career, I saw very, very early success. I was put in supervisory and management positions that very quickly escalated my reputation in the company. And I was helping different areas across the country duplicate what I duplicated in the New York metro area, which was marketing and sales support for the sales team. So I have a sales and marketing background. So very quickly, I mean, I was in meetings with senior VPs at like 22 years old. It was like, I grew up really quickly in the corporate space. So I had a nice run with IBM, and then I stayed in technology. I wanted to elevate, beyond what I was doing there. I worked for Tandem, which is another computer company that was bought by Compaq, that was bought by Digital. So for the first half of my corporate career, I was on the tech side, working for corporate in sales and marketing roles. And I loved it. It was a variety of different things that I did. And, earn the trips and earn the recognition, everything that you would dream of a successful career. And I outgrew that, and I decided to look for something different. And I ended up on Madison Avenue working for an advertising agency. So I took a lot of the experience that I had in corporate, and I my clients were the types of companies that I had worked for when I was working in corporate. So I brought that experience to the agency side. And that was an interesting run, because when you work, I don't know if you're familiar with the agency life, but it's like they own you. Well, at least it was
Not
back
the
then.
advertising agency life. Like, I don't know what that's like.
Oh, it's like, you're the clients, you're basically running against the client deadline. And it was, the highs were high, but the lows were lows. It was a lot of burnout. But I loved it. Again, I had a lot of high profile clients and did a lot of amazing things when I was there. And I hit my mid 30s, was married, no children. And that was my first shift. When I decided to have children, I had twins right away.
Wow.
So I'm in the suburbs. I'm in the suburbs, commuting 2 hours each way to work, and boom, here I am, pregnant with twins.
Wow.
So that was the beginning of like me thinking, how is my life going to change? And I was fortunate enough because someone that I worked with at the agency was starting her own boutique agency, and she's like, I want you to come with me. And I was like, okay, great. So almost shortly after my children were born, they were like 3, I ended up at a work at home situation for a boutique agency. So that gave me the freedom and the flexibility, which is what I really
That's
needed, while
great.
still having the money
Right.
that I wanted, right?
Exactly.
And then here came, the next shift. The next shift was, I'm outgrowing this role. There's no room for me to expand either in the company or even myself. Like I felt like I had been doing the same thing for 13 years, just in a different space. So I left, and I did what most people don't do. I left without a comparable job and salary. I was running a network marketing business on the side, and I thought I would grow that and that would replace my income, but that wasn't happening. So I hired a coach. And in hiring a coach, that's when I was exposed to the coaching profession. And so that then led me down the coaching profession path. So that's the, corporate to entrepreneur shift. And then while I was coaching, I coached a lot of different people, a lot of plumbers. I started plumbers and accountants and realtors and just a variety of people.
Yeah.
And then I got into corporate coaching. So I was coaching, I had opportunities in companies to develop leadership development programs and coach the executives. And then in 2020, that was the major shift. I'll say that was the major shift that happened to me, because I was going through some personal, I call it personal upheaval. I'll just call it that. There was personal upheaval going on in my life. I mean, I was going through a divorce. My husband and I at the time, we just decided this wasn't working. We were married over 20 years. And I realized that what I was doing wasn't really satisfying me. So I dove into personal development, and I got into a program which is neuroscience based mindset, and it really really helped me dig deep. I think we talked about this Dr. Joe Dispenza stuff, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's based on his work, and coincidentally, at the same time, I had my very first astrology reading. So here, at the peak of this personal and professional upheaval, I had this reading, which at the time I only knew that astrology was sun signs and horoscopes. So I'm a Cancer sun, and I would read, the horoscopes online or whatever, just like whatever, just for fun. And that opened up my world. That started me on this whole journey of discovering myself even deeper. But what was really fascinating was I didn't know this astrologer. She came recommended by somebody, and she was able to actually put words to what I was experiencing, and actually help me feel and recognize that it was all purposed. So when you were talking about what you went through last year, had I looked at your chart, I would have named it for you. I would have said, oh, Jessica, this is what's going on. She immediately knew that there were relationship issues. While she didn't know exactly what they were, and then through discovery, and that's the thing with astrology, it's not like this is what's going on. It's these are the themes that are happening in your life. I know they're challenging. You validate, and then we have a dialogue about it. So that it just totally fascinated me that I now I understood what was going on, and I had a light to look at the end of the tunnel, that through all of the turmoil that I was going through at home and really some uncertainty about where I wanted to take my business, I started to see a pathway. I started to say, wow. So she actually said, I don't know if you realize this, but you have this placement here in your chart that makes you, what did she say? Like you'd be excellent at astrology. Like you could dive into the details. You have this voice that you could explain it to people where they'd understand it. Like she pieced together different aspects that were in my chart that helped me understand what my strengths were so that I can then say, okay, so how do I take what's already innately a part of who I am and reconstruct my career and pivot in a way that is more authentically aligned to who I am.
Yeah.
And it just evolved from there. I mean, I started, I was coaching, and then I started to bring astrology into my coaching as I was getting more knowledgeable about the practice. Then I advanced myself in astrology, and I started to bring more of it in, more of it in. And then as I started to dive more onto the business side, how to apply it in a business context. So, I mean, we're all individuals. So how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So I look at the client, you as, you're an individual and you show up the way you show up. But it's now, how do you apply some of these principles and these practices in your business? Like we talked about earlier, is this the time to be visible, or is this the time to pull back? Is this the time to recalibrate, or is this the time to take a vacation? I advised a client who was going to take 1 week in July. I said, no, take two, take two, take two. Mm-hmm. So that's it. So now it's really solid. The work is really solid. I have gone through hundreds of readings with clients, all very different. And their results, are the same. I mean, it's not the same exactly, but it supported them in the evolution, their own evolutionary journey, whatever that looks like, and normalizes what they're going through. Because sometimes when we see what's going on around us, we think, okay, why aren't I at this point? And it's your journey is very different than someone else's. And that was another big thing that really helped me ground myself is, okay, this is my second chapter, marriage ended, second career. Is this what I really saw for myself? Go back to your original question, growing up, no, what I saw for myself was get married, have a family, have a successful career, retire at 65, go, live in a warm place, right? Isn't that what we were accustomed to knowing growing up, right? That 40-year career. But it's changed, and it's changed for a lot of us. It's not a lot of people are seeing that trajectory is no longer the trajectory that they want to be on.
Yeah.
And what I bring to the table through my own lived experience and through the work that I do with clients is I show them the other way that's unique for them.
That's so powerful, Barbara. The other way that is unique for them. Like, there's so much information out there. People like touting so many messages, do things my way, or do this, do that. Like follow this, but not so much information out there helping people to figure out their own uniqueness. Mm-hmm. Because, and the other thing I think is like really exacerbated with like social media, because it's essentially, it makes people do that comparison. Like I should do this, or I should do that. I should do this. And like follow the crowd. Otherwise there's the fear of missing out on a fabulous life type of thing. And for me, it was I always had like this little vision of how I viewed myself, not necessarily like what I was specifically doing, but there was just a certain aura or vibe about how I present myself and how I view myself, and just me that I had in the back of my head. I guess you could say like a little guiding light. But but it was always so hard to tap into that because with growing up and just, just interacting with different people who are just in their own world, is their projections on how you should be.
Mm-hmm.
So finding that unique path, yeah, that was really hard for me to be like, to basically give myself the permission to explore my own unique path and what's really meant for me versus what someone told me or what they want for me. It's like really empowering what you're helping people to do.
And there's one word that I can put there, that's deconditioning.
Yes, deconditioning. Mm-hmm.
It's deconditioning. And you're familiar with human design. I'm familiar with human design. I'm bringing more and more of that into my work as well. And even if you just look at your human design type, your type, which type are you?
I think I was a combo. It was
Okay.
yeah,
Manifesting generator. Okay.
yeah.
I have a very unique type. And once I understood what it was, I allowed myself to express myself that way.
Mm.
It's a manifester. It's 8% of the population, and I'm meant to disrupt. I'm meant to create change, and I may what's the word I want to use? I don't want to say offend people, but I may. I think the textbook word is repel. If you study it, it's like you may repel people. And it's like, so if you think about, and this is something that I've evolved over the last several years, going with what you were talking about, do it this way, do it that way, say it this way, say it that way. I was always retrofitting my message so that people would respond. Now I speak my message, and the people who are meant to respond will respond. And that's what I teach my clients. I help them understand the way that, their presence and their voice and their messaging is not the same as mine. And so how could I teach you what your voice and your presence is without you understanding it yourself?
Yeah.
So all of these, and we'll get back to AI, because there's a lot out there about AI prompts and, say this and do it this way. And if you're not taking into account your own, the way that you're meant to speak and the way that you're meant to communicate, it's not going to resonate with the people you're meant to attract. So I'll give you an example. In my chart, in everybody's chart, the planet Mercury is the planet of communication. So where that planet is in your chart and how it interacts with the other planets in your chart says a lot about your communication style. I'm meant to speak. I'm meant to speak. People need to hear my voice. That's when people resonate more. Other people, it's writing. And that's just a real simple example. The way you're meant to take action. I'll give you another example where you see a lot of the online marketers would taunt these like big launches, like, weeks leading up to a big launch, and then you launch, and then I'm not built that way. I'm not built that way in my human design, and I'm not built that way in my chart either. So there were periods of my life before I really understood this that I was actually taking advice from those people. That's why I hit the point that I did in 2020. It was like, why are things not working for me the way they're working for other people?
Mm-hmm.
So I actually say this, and we had this I was on a small call this morning about this. This comes before the strategy. I'm not saying the strategy doesn't happen. You need the strategy. You need those tactics. You need branding. But this comes before all of that.
I get it.
You get it, right?
Yeah, because essentially, if you're starting from a place that's not yours, you'll develop things that aren't for you.
Exactly. And
So,
they're short lived, and you find yourself burning out. Like maybe
yeah,
you'll get so far, and then it's like, why isn't this working anymore? And then
yeah,
you try something else. Why isn't this working anymore?
yeah, yeah. And then also, the whole time you're doing it, you feel so tight inside. Like you're just tense
Yes.
because it's not for
Yes.
you.
And that's, yeah. So it's, yeah. And that's when you're coming from a place of, pushing and non-energetic resonance. And
Mhm.
people can feel that,
Mhm.
and people can feel when you're not authentically aligned, either from a timing standpoint, from an offer standpoint, from a messaging standpoint, all of it, all of it. So that's my passion. My passion is, however people need to use the information, especially like those of us that have been conditioned a certain way. I
Mhm.
think the younger generation is starting to come out of the, a lot of them are already, like, a lot of
The
young
younger
people are,
generation, they're like, a lot of them impress me.
yeah, yeah. And it's the older ones that are having to look at this new, to them it's a new way. But I'll get spiritual with you. It's really your soul. I mean, underneath all this, your soul is trying to guide you, through the journey. And it's not to say it's going to be unicorns and rainbows the whole time, because we're meant to go through certain challenges and certain life lessons. And
Hmm.
I can see that in the charts too. I can see why so I'll give you one example. I had one client that she left a big corporate career to go out on her own. And she found me through a podcast, and we met, and I coached her for a few months. And the first thing I said to her was, it's going to take several years before you actually find what it is that you're looking for, because of what was happening in her chart. But
Interesting.
but
Several
there
years.
was, yeah, but there was certain things that, and so there's that. It's like, you may want it, but there's a journey that you need to go through before you get there. And a lot of it had to do with, there was a big shift for her. It
Mhm.
was helping her to understand the work she was really meant to do. And she ended up becoming a yoga instructor, and then like doing all these other things that started to lead her
Mm,
down a path
mm,
that is more aligned with who she's really meant to be and who she's here to serve. So
mm,
you feel it, and this is why it happened to me over the course of several years. Like the first push was out of corporate. The first was like, and I didn't know it then, but studying astrology and having to go back and look at that period of time, I was going through a certain cycle. It was like, it was a breaking point in the sky that was activating in my chart. It's like, okay, it's time. So now I can help clients see that next year you'll be ready for what may be a career move, or a personal choice, or, so I'm not going to tell them what it is. I can give them themes. I can tell them it's job related or relationship related or whatever, but at least you're not hit with it and being like, what is happening to me? I don't understand this.
yes. Yeah. The what is happening to me? I don't understand this. That's literally how I felt earlier this year. I was like, what is this?
Yeah. And that was me in 2020. And the woman that I met, her and I are very good friends now. She and I got together regularly so I can understand what was going on, so I can learn it for myself. And then 6 months later, I decided to study it and bring it into my work. So I say she was my mentor, for a really long time. I still, ask her questions sometimes, based on, she's been in astrology for a really long time. But I studied under somebody else through a formal program. So it was a gift. I mean, having that connection was a gift, because it now is a big part of who I am and what I do. So yeah, I mean, so now where I'm at is I've really pulled together all of my experience. So it's it's an evolution, and I've really come back to bringing a lot of what I did in corporate together with what I'm doing now. So it's a
Yeah.
more holistic view of who I am and what I'm meant to do.
Yeah. I love that so much. I love that so much, how unifying all of you into what you do. Because that's what I'm doing for myself too, unifying all I do into what I do, helping other people. And even as I approach, like, so I'm in tech, I do project management.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing, like, people wouldn't ever suspect, like, there would be like surface level, if you're not familiar with the field or anything. I say I'm in tech project management. How could you ever connect spiritual stuff or, astrology or human design or how
Mm-hmm.
you communicate? How could you? But at the end of the day, like, I'm interacting with people who, whatever is going on with them affects our project,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Exactly.
How I interact with them affects their mood and how they interact with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I make it a point where I make sure I'm good inside so that when I present myself to the world, I'm my best self as much as I could be, given whatever conditions, but I'm my best self, right? And so as a result of, learning more about human behavior, how things can manifest like in an organization. So they call it organizational behavior, right? Or the culture. Um, I take that all into account with how I approach, how I guide people, or what's the best recommendation for how you're interacting at work. But as I'm building relationships with my clients, the feedback I get is, this is the best. I look forward to this call. This is my favorite meeting of the day.
Mm.
Right. Because I'm bringing all of me into what I do. I'm not just a robot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a human, and I treat you like a human. And these tools are meant to make our lives easier. You don't have to hate it. I can help you out, you know? And I don't know, it makes everything so uplifting for everybody. It brings me fulfillment. It makes people, start feeling like a burden is lifted off of them,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where things start to improve and their day to day gets better.
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple of examples of how that's worked with clients of mine. I have one client that I'm working with now that we started with looking at her entire family's charts so she can better understand how her husband operates and sort of how he's impacted by the astrological cycles now. Her children, who are older teens, one was just graduating, and in our coaching sessions, she brings that into, like, okay, I know that this is happening. Here's how I'm feeling. So we bring in the dynamics of what's going on, so that she's showing up as, like, because she's going through her own evolution of stepping into her authentic self. So now, how does she navigate the family dynamics, her marriage, while she's trying to be who she truly needs to be?
Uh,
That's one example. And then on the business, also on the another business example is, if you have a business partner and you're having some sort of conflict, like you operate very differently, you can look at both charts to see where there might be synergy in communications or skills and talents that you bring to the table, versus, okay, this partner is better at the finances. And you may know that intuitively, but you may also know from a personality standpoint, or
yeah.
from an operationally, they're wired to want control. And so you can actually coach both of them on how to run the business more effectively.
Yeah. No, that's really important. That's really important because a lot of times people, they'll notice the strengths or weakness of the partner and then want them to change the weakness. versus wait, here are my strengths, here are your strengths, how do we complement each other?
That's exactly it. And so and I always say this, it's when you understand this for yourself, you can start to have more compassion for the people around you, even though you may not know, right? You just know that they're wired differently. But now you know that that's how they're wired, and they're also on their own journey too. I'll give you my example was studying astrology, like as I was going through my divorce and understanding my ex's chart brought a whole lot of awareness to me around why he did a lot of the things that he did or said. Not that, I mean, listen, it takes two to tango in a relationship, but I can see where the dynamics were. I mean, there is something called relationship synastry in astrology where you can actually like look at that, where your compatibility is. But like there were certain things that I then understood. Maybe I would have approached him a little differently throughout the years. Would we have still been married? No, I think we're meant to be divorced, but that's okay. But now I know, because we said we have two children together. I have that background of what's there to know why he showed up the way he showed up.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it's fascinating because you still end up with perhaps the same result, right? But the journey of it all doesn't have to be so painful, when you're aware of certain things.
Yep.
Like even for myself, just I had like a little aha of like my own family dynamics, right? Where it's like, okay, there was a lot of changes going on, a lot of things, but there's reflecting back on like, the past 10 years of just my family dynamics. It's like, all right, I see what part of the cycle this is with you guys. And I know it's a cycle at this point, so this is how I'm going to respond to it this time around, right? Just a little shift. I'm not going to do my usual response that would again, like kind of suck me into whatever, they have going on,
And that was probably part of your journey of learning and
exactly.
and your soul growth.
Exactly.
But you're more, you're very highly aware and very highly conscious. So, but a lot of times the people around us aren't. So what I'm finding also is, and you probably see this too, when you shift, they shift. You could shift the dynamic. You could shift the dynamics.
Yeah. I do see that. I do.
The other thing that we didn't touch upon, which is another area that I work on, is you can actually look at your business as its own separate entity, and so you as a founder and owner of your business, you birth a business, and so it has its own energetic blueprint.
It's true.
And so there's a lot that I do with my clients to look at how they operate within their business energetic blueprint.
Yeah.
And how their business is meant to show up and how they're showing up and where they might need the support to help their business, show up the way it was meant. Yeah.
Yeah. You're completely right. That thought had crossed my mind this morning. I was thinking about like your business, your attention and the way how you approach it is nurturing. You're feeding energy into it. You're feeding intention into it. You're feeding all these things, right? And you have to shepherd it. So with what you do with the energetic blueprint for your business and how your business entity shows up, it's kind of like when you put on your sales and marketing hat, you're trying to find your ideal target, perfect client, but like that's like the energy entity of your business, and you have to align it with the right energy entity of your client's business or your client, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like that perfect alignment match, and then evolution happens from there.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. So so I hear a lot out there, like you are your business, like you are your brand. And you're not. Your energy feeds your business and your energy feeds your brand. But how are you going to grow if you're interpreting your own identity as your business's identity?
Yeah, because if your business fails, does that mean you're a failure? You know?
Well, it's how do you interpret that?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You're right. It's two different things. It's two different things. It's two different things. And we're all born with gifts. I think the way how I look at it, we're all born with an innate gift that we're supposed to express, the expression of it, right? It's different than the like you are the identity. Like it's such a nuance of a shift, but I think that's what a lot of people kind of go through, like those identity shifts, because you're taught like you are your career, you are what you do, you are this, but that's not true, because when that's done, you're stuck with, oh, who am I? I found like there's a lot of women that I've spoken to where their kids are going off to college and they're empty nesters, and their identity was just in being a mom. It's like kind of like the same thing where it's like, you know, I'm a mom, I'm a mom. Well, yeah, I mean that's what you're doing at this phase, but there's more to you than just that.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. And so now when you look at yourself, when you started your business and who you are now, you're different, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it takes understanding where's the alignment now, right? So where is the alignment now? A lot of entrepreneurs will go out and try and find these surface level fixes
Yeah.
without going back and addressing the alignment.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's so important to understand this piece first before you start layering in the strategy and layering in the tactics. It's
Yeah.
like, where am I aligned? Where am I misaligned? And how am I now showing up in my business based on who I am now, not who I was when I first started it?
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. And the I love like wrapping up with this type of questions, your top three, right? So if you could give your top three pieces of advice for people who are looking to find their own internal alignment, and then how they should be, I guess, expressing that alignment, or I guess, like, yeah, finding how do they start finding their own alignment, and then I think that's the question
Yeah.
actually.
I think it first starts with taking a pause, just a real good pause, because we're feeling, what I see is the doing, and the doing. But when you're in the stillness, you'll actually start to get the answers, or at least the whispers that something needs to change and what might need to change. Because I experienced it again. Like we never end. You know, it's just it's a constant thing. Like, but you get better at it. But that's the first thing, is like, find the time. This is what I teach my clients every morning. Sit in stillness. Sit in stillness. And there's somebody that's going to talk to you, and that's your soul. You'll start to, you know what? Maybe this job isn't for me anymore. Or I think I need to do something a little differently. Like, you start to open yourself up to the possibilities of what that might be. And then the alignment, I mean, I think the alignment really comes with, how well do you know yourself? How well do you, I mean, I believe, I have somebody that was my coach years ago. She would always say, you can't see the spinach in between your teeth, your own teeth, right? So you really need an unbiased person, a coach, a mentor, to help you. I mean, we're coaches who we hire coaches ourselves.
Yeah.
It's a matter of finding the right one that isn't going to tell you what to do, but who's going to allow you to see who you truly are. as opposed to who you should be based on your goals, right?
Yeah.
So my philosophy is you are your own expert. And if you don't feel like you are your own expert about yourself, then find somebody you trust that can help you with that.
Wonderful. That was really great. That was so great.
Thank you.
And where can people find you?
So, well, start with my website, which I think you're going to put them in the show notes, I assume. Okay. So my website is www.barbaracalexander.com. Because Barbara Alexander was taken. It's a very common name. I didn't realize that when I was starting my business. Yeah. That's the first place to start. I will already tell you my website is outdated. I've outgrown my website. But there's a way that you can contact me. You can book a complimentary consultation if anything that I said resonated with you and you're interested in, like, what does this really mean? I can have a lovely conversation with you. If you're into astrology and you're already like kind of familiar, I do have an Instagram account which is aligning with astrology, which I know, Jessica, you follow. And you could find me on LinkedIn too, Barbara C. Alexander, or Barbara. I don't know what my handle is on LinkedIn, but if you got it in the show notes, that's how they'll find me. So yeah, I put out a newsletter on email every week, the weekly, and then I do a monthly. If you really want to understand this, I put it in very simple terms. But if anything that I said, you're curious, just, book a call with me and I'd love to just have a chat.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Barbara. Yeah. This was really, it's like, I love nuanced conversations about like just different things that can shift your perspective and then change your trajectory. So I loved it so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I loved it too. I appreciate the invite.
Hey everyone. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. If you were inspired by what you heard, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.